Hi, and welcome to the River News Roundup podcast, where we take the most poignant stories from the newspaper and discuss them with our journalist panel. I'm Grace Henley, joined by Natasha, Sibanda and Jackson Hall to discuss and debate the February issue, which is now available on all campuses. This issue was filled with many touching, shocking and deep-cutting stories of what is going on at the university, from stories marking the second-year anniversary of the war in Ukraine to the shocking figures revealing the extent that students will go to get a good degree, even if that does mean breaking the rules. We have lots of interesting discussions in this issue to round up. Our cover story this month revealed that over 200 Kingston University students were caught cheating in the last academic year. The most heavily offending subjects were those that were highly content and textbook based. Students interviewed for the piece admitted that the workload is hard and difficult to recite all the information successfully for their exams and studies. In addition, students are penalised for referencing mistakes and risk 3 years of hard work if they are caught. All this being revealed, you may only be left with questions as to why this is happening and what are the underlying causes. First off, what initial ideas do we have about this? Are we shocked to read these figures?
No,
Really.
I thought it might be higher than it came out.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I feel like just being at university, you hear people tell you a lot that they do things like this, so it's not so shocking to hear that it is happening. I'm almost more shocked that we got people to admit that they did it.
Yeah.
But, I mean, yeah, especially because I don't know exactly what courses we mean by, like, content and textbook heavy, but, I mean, that does make sense because those are the courses where it's going to be the easiest to find things online, to, you know, write things down that you cite later during your exam or whatever. So, I mean, I'm not shocked at all, really.
Yeah.
Maybe that's not good, though. Maybe I should be more shocked.
Do you think that it's just a case of some students that typically are trying to test their luck, or do we think that there is more of an issue maybe with the course and the teaching, and if students are feeling like they're getting this, like, academic support that they need?
I feel like some subjects, I think the amount of work you're given is too much. Then they give you a set amount of work, but I think they realise the amount of time and how much you have to put into that work to get a top grade. So I feel like many students just use like stuff like iChat or all them websites where you can pay someone to write your essay because they just find it easier, and the time they have to like do the content themselves is just non-existent because you're expecting someone to write like a 2,000 word essay with an exam that's happening next week and another like maybe like 10,000 dissertation they're trying to write at the same time or in the space of a month. So I don't think some lecturers understand that. Yeah, like you give me an assignment, but you don't take into consideration that I have like 6 other assignments during the same time that I'm doing.
Mm-hmm. I think also a lot of people kind of have gotten this mindset about university recently that it's not actually as helpful to them as like in their career as they hope it to be. I feel like that's not so much the case for us, those of us doing journalism, because we do a lot of really practical work. We do a lot of what we would really be doing in the real world, but people in like those really textbook heavy courses probably are a little bit disillusioned with the fact that they have to write so many essays and do these exams and things, because really what they want to do is go be a doctor. I hope it's not the people in medicine that are cheating, but you know what I mean. Like, yeah, it's just a lot of people are probably not really interested in doing that kind of work. So I mean, I get where it's coming from. I don't think it's amazing. But also, you never know people's circumstances. So
I think it might have a lot to do with as well, though, that people are quite unprepared for university. I think, like, from school, you're kind of told that it's very similar to school and you're expected to almost go. And I think what people don't realise is that, especially in a lot of these content-based like subjects, it is less practical. And rather than being in a class of 30, you're in a class of 300 in a lecture hall. It's very different, and there's not as much one-to-one help available.
And especially post-pandemic, I think a lot of people kind of lost the groove of, doing academia, being kind of present in, your class, doing your essay in person, and all these kinds of things that kind of fell to the wayside a little bit during the pandemic. So, I mean, and people are so online now, like they'll find
Yeah.
ways around anything online.
Mhm.
I mean, we ran that piece, was it November, about AI at the
Mhm.
university as well. I mean, I'm sure that's a really big concern for lecturers and professors now as well.
Yeah. And it's a
So
constantly
accessible.
changing issue as well, because the
Yeah.
universities have to keep really on top of that.
I like that we have the Turnitin logo on the front, because I think that is like such like a, I don't know, an emblematic thing. Like everybody knows what that is. Everybody's like, oh god, turn it in. Like,
But even with issues with referencing, there's a lot of students that have probably faced a lot of like penalisation for not referencing correctly and stuff like that. Do you think that that's an easy mistake to make? Because I definitely
So
do.
easy, yeah.
Because like no matter because you learn one way to Harvard's reference, and there should be only one way. Then you do that way, then they're like, no, you're supposed to be doing it this way, and it's kind of like, you want me to reference something in like 6 different ways that one should be right, but no one knows what the correct one is. So you're just sitting there trying to bang your head against the wall, because you're like, this is what like it's telling me how to Harvard's reference, but you're telling me something else. So you're just kind of like, what do I do? And I feel like a lot of people don't know, like on Canvas, like there's like on, I think it's on the discussion sections for most subjects, they have like, you can submit an essay in and they'll check the plagiarism within it, just in case, to like make sure like everything is referenced and stuff. But I wasn't aware of that till like second year, because they don't really like advertise that as a way to protect yourself. It's more of like, oh, if you stumble across it, that's great, isn't it? Use it. They don't actually teach you about it a lot.
Yeah. And also, they're like you were saying, the standards for like Harvard referencing has changed many times over, the years, and also it can be hard to find like up-to-date resources for it online. Like I know a lot of people that use like those like, cite this for me websites, but that website, like cite this for me, is different from, can you cite that, like the websites are different. And then also for me at least, coming from the US, where I was taught to reference in MLA format, it's like, I don't know, I get confused really easily with it, because I, for 4 years, did a certain kind of referencing that is not at all like Harvard, really. I mean, it's not that different, but it's a thing that I think is easy to get wrong for a lot of reasons. Even just something as simple as like not putting it in alphabetical order can get you like points knocked off. It's hard.
Yeah, definitely. So, in other news, the issue also covers a very touching story of Alina Ledanova, a Ukrainian woman who resides in Kingston with her son, who was displaced after the Ukraine and Russian war. She was housed through the Homes of Ukraine scheme, and the story marks the 2-year anniversary of the war and highlights a much newer problem that many Ukrainians must face today. The question of returning home after the war or trying to keep residency in the UK has added to much of their initial uncertainty. Since the war was declared, it's very evident that the media has moved on. Although there are still many updates of the war, do we think that the press has lost touch with covering these issues, and do we think it needs more highlighting within the press?
Yeah, definitely. I think that compared to when the war started, compared to now, you can see there's like a dramatic decrease of the amount of coverage. And I feel like I think that's a social issue that just happens like with every like topic. Like we always see like Black Lives Matter with George Floyd, the Ukraine war, like the NHS during the pandemic. Like these are social topics that are like so big in the moment that 2 months down the line, everyone's like, oh, okay, what's the next thing that's happening? So it's like, as a society, we don't register issues, we just accept them in the moment, like, oh my god, like this shouldn't be happening, what can we do to stop it? Then 2 months later, when like everyone stops talking about it, you feel like, oh, if they've stopped talking about it, there's no point me talking about it, because like, no, it's not an issue to discuss anymore. They just push it under the rug and focus for something else. And that's not how it should be. Like, we're not going to move forward if we're just going to be like, oh, okay, I talk about it now, but in like 2 years time it's not important, so what's the point?
And like everybody gets their news from social media now. Even if you read other news, you also get a lot of news just implicitly from social media. And because of that, it has that effect, because people's attention spans are so short nowadays as well. Like, you only really hear about something for as long as it's trending on Twitter, or, you know, for as long as you see explaining videos on TikTok or whatever, and that kind of leads to like these stories burning out faster, even in like standard news media, because they're trying to appeal to the social media algorithm. So it's like, we're going to put out less pieces about this because people aren't talking about this, people aren't engaging with this anymore, which is, you know, from a business standpoint, it makes sense, but it's not, you know, great for the people who are still affected by this. And that's one of the big reasons why I think like it's become such a big deal to, like, you know, don't stop talking about Ukraine, don't stop talking about Gaza, don't stop talking about all of these things, because we need to keep it in the minds not only of, you know, your social media followers, but also you know, people who follow social media trends need to see that this is still something people care about. They still want coverage of this. They want to know what's going on. And also, like, the longer that it's in the media, the more likely it is that, you know, there's progress in that regard. With, you know, we've seen, you know, pressure from social media and normal media outlets kind of influencing the situation in Israel, Gaza right now. And I think a little bit, it's like you said, it's been a while since it's been like at the forefront of the news, but I remember there being some sort of action in Russia, Ukraine as well. So yeah, it is just really kind of unfortunate, but that is the way that it is now.
No, I definitely think that we have this tendency to just move past things very quickly, and everyone wants everything now, and we want a resolution now, but that's obviously not the case in situations like this. So we tend to lose focus and interest quite quickly, especially across the press. But I think that's why it's so important that we have really human stories such as this one, where it really makes you connect with the people and makes you really think about what other people are going through, rather than just being like bombarded with statistics and numbers. We've actually got stories to them. Which leads me to my next question, which is why do we think it is important for journalists to report on the more human side of these issues rather than just the statistics and the general story?
I feel like because like through our lives we've seen like so much like horror and trauma, or like charity adverts with like malnourished children on the front. I think as a society, I feel like we've just become desensitized to that type of material. Like the amount of like maybe water ads we've seen in our lifetime, and yet we're like, oh, that's upsetting, but do we actually like feel so upset that we're gonna like call the number, make a donation? No, because you've seen it so many times and it's still an issue that hasn't been resolved. You're kind of like, how is my one donation gonna help someone if this has been running for like that like couple of like decades and the same thing is still happening? So I feel like because people see it so much and people just feel like, oh, okay, like, oh, it's another water advert, oh no, like there's another like racism dispute happening in the UK, oh, this is happening again. It's like people view it as the norm, like it's wrong, but we all just feel like, oh, that's just what society is like, we can't change everyone, this is what it is like. And I feel like if we have more human issues like this, it actually allows people to connect with the story, because just putting out pictures of war, yes, it's going to be upsetting, but you're not connecting with people, you're just being flashed images of violence, which you're kind of like, oh my god, what's happening? But you're not like gaining any information from it. You're just seeing, oh, war, like you don't have found out like how many people killed, or like who was killed, or what happened to them, like how it's changed their lives. So I feel like that's why journalists should report on it more.
A lot of people also, I feel like, engage with the news almost like it's TV or something. You know what I mean? Where like they watch it, they go, oh my gosh, that's so horrible, and then that's all they ever think about it. So I think, you know, getting people on the news or in the newspapers to say things from their perspective really is important, because, like, you know, we're saying, it gives a humanity to the story.
Another feature in this month's issue was the one about the attainment gap identified for black students. The stats are observed nationally, but the figures at Kingston University also raise concern amongst students and staff. The university introduces initiatives such as Elevate to support BAME students at Kingston, but there are still many questions around the gap and what can be done further. Firstly, let's discuss why this is an issue. The article covers some reasoning that black students may struggle to connect with the course material due to lack of diversity, and they also may be more prone to feel academic pressure too. What are our thoughts about this?
I would say so, coming from like an athletic family myself, there is a lot of academic pressure you have, because mainly like for me, like my parents, they came from a third world nation and moved to the UK, and like their goal is like to have a better life than they did in like they did before, with like me and my brother, and in general you kind of feel that pressure to succeed, because it's like that's like if you're successful academically, you're more open to achieve high levels of jobs, or like job like certificates. Like if I was more academically gifted, I could go into like something like medicine, or like maths or science or engineering, and that's what their aim goal is, because they feel like the smarter you are, the better job you get, the more money you are, the more like safe you are. And I feel like that's one of the reasons why like many like brain students struggle with like academics, because there's so much pressure around it. You feel like once you fail, you failed your parents, you failed everything, because it's like one thing that anyone can do, but you're not able to achieve it yourself. So why will you continue trying to achieve something you don't think you can achieve?
A lot of people also kind of have like that kind of imposter syndrome going on as well. We talked about that a little bit a couple weeks ago, but you know, seeing fewer people from their background in their classes, it can be like, you know, uncomfortable. So yeah, I can imagine.
I definitely think that would affect maybe how you respond to being in class as well, and you want to be able to feel comfortable and feel like you're also listened to as well. So I think that's really important, and I'm glad that this story highlighted that issue, because I think it hasn't gone under the radar, but I think that this really draws a good attention to it.
And that's another thing where it's good to have people actually talking about it, you know, because it's something that you can say out loud to the void, and people will be like, oh, that sounds horrible, but like you need to hear people saying that this is really happening to them, it's really affecting them, and so then people will be like, oh, well, we need to help them.
Yeah, and it's nice to understand why as well. Reading the piece, there were a few things that were brought up to me that I would never have considered, and it's refreshing to be able to read that and understand. So it's hard to say what can be done to reduce these issues, but do we think that the resources and help is equally available, and what could possibly be done to reinforce the presence of student support for black students, not just at this university but over the country?
One thing I would say is that I don't think it's equal to all students, based on, I think it's the university you go to, the area you're from. Like, let's compare us, like, you can't Kingston University to like somewhere like Cambridge or Durham. Like, of course we're not going to have the same caliber of support they do, because their funding is just ridiculous compared to like Kingston University. So I do feel like, for a sense, that they of course they may run schemes, but their schemes will be at a higher level, with more people within the field with a high academic level themselves, compared to Kingston University with such low budget as just a university in general, because it's just an ordinary university that does well within like the national graph. It's like we're not going to be open to that level of like discussion, because we just don't have the people at that caliber to discuss them issues with. But I feel like with projects like Elevate, it is a good starting point to help black students or ethnic students together, or all together, and able to like reduce that gap, because all students come from different backgrounds, but it's like we all have the right for equal education, equal level of experience to that education, and like that teaching of education. So like Elevate's a really good like program. It's good that it's discussed in the newspaper, because I don't think many people know about Elevate as like a whole program altogether.
Absolutely.
So it just sheds a light that we are like creating schemes to help you better your future altogether.
And this is just something I would throw in there, is that resources for international students are also like a lot sparser than for domestic students, which doesn't that doesn't say anything necessarily to the race of anyone, but it does affect people from, those places as well. So that could be worked on.
Yeah, because I know that, because like there's them writing like to help with your punctuation and stuff, them courses, because I see them sometimes, because I do some myself, and like they have like just like 2-hour classes a week to help improve your English if you're like if you're not good at speaking English in general or from an international country. But if you just break it down like two hours per week to improve your English, that's not enough when you're in a country where you're going to walk out the door and someone's instantly going to speak a different language, and you're just being taught like maybe 30 words in the space of 1,000 words that you're just supposed to instantly know. So I feel like in that level, they should help more international students adapt to the culture and language, because no one's gonna understand a whole language with 2 hours a week, because like that's just not enough time in general, I believe.
And have better resources to get people acclimated as well. I think a lot of people struggle being far away from home, especially if where they call home is somewhere like vastly different from the UK. It's just, there's not a lot of resources, not only like to make those people feel like emotionally better, but also like there's not a lot of people employed in like international services at all. There's a single person in the office that I speak to personally, and obviously it's not like, given the topic at hand, I'm not like that relevant, but but I'm from the US, you know what I mean? Like imagine for much smaller places, like I feel like there really should be more resources allocated, especially because I think Kingston kind of prides itself on having a lot of international students, so it's kind of crazy. Like
I remember people one of my white friends, I remember in first year they said because my friend Lena, she's from Portsmouth, and she even said like this area is way more diverse than Portsmouth, because that's like an old white area. And like when you come into Kingston, I feel like the Asian community and the black community make majority of the community of Kingston students, and that's something they just should pride on, and also use it as like a stepping stone, like be the university that can make a difference with the amount of applicants with ethnic backgrounds, like be that stepping stone, and like Elevate is that stepping stone for this university.
Yeah, I think it's important to mention as well that I think the issue of like inclusivity and diversity also extends much further than just the university. It's also an issue that in the jobs that we're all looking to go into as well, and just like nationally, it's just an issue that really needs to still have a lot of attention and focus drawn to it. So
it's good that we're talking about it in the paper then.
Exactly. So Valentine's Day is near approaching, and the issue has certainly jumped onto the love train this February. From our Campus Crush feature to comment on why Valentine's Day is hated by so many, the emotions have been all over the shop for our newsroom journalists. So I'd first like to talk about the Campus Crush making a special comeback. Do we think that this reinforces the thrill of Valentine's Day?
I am so excited about it. I think that it is, well, because we've been talking about how important it is to like really focus on these super serious issues, but a lot of people don't engage with news unless they get something that they that fires off the serotonin in their brain. And I think the Campus Crush is something that draws a lot of people in, and hopefully will get them to read more in the paper. I know people who when I tell them that I work with the paper, I do journalism or whatever, they're like, oh my gosh, you guys should do the Campus Crush again. I love that. I'm like, I've been saying it. So I'm really excited, and I think we've done a great job with it this year. The social media team and Kat have done really great things with it. It's just really cute.
Yeah, it's
you read
just
it?
something light-hearted. It's really nice, and it's just relaxing, and anyone can like engage with it, like you said. It's like you do sometimes need like a break from like hardcore serious news and just something more joyful. I haven't read it yet. I want to read it. I want to see what people have said.
Really nicely. Yeah, no, I think as well it's a nice bit of fun to add into the newspaper, but also I think it's a chance for, I don't know, just to take this complicated life and just take it very simple, and we can write little notes and things like that and just strip it right back, and I think it's a really nice idea.
And especially what we were talking about, like all the assignments and the essays and everything, it's a nice, cute little thing to just have, you know, a little person to focus on in your lectures. And it's a nice way to kind of get that out. And for people listening, you should read it because you might be in it, because it is anonymous.
And then that leads us to our next story, which is why so many people dislike the idea of Valentine's. Do we think Valentine's Day is still about love, or do you think the meaning has changed to become a consumerist's dream?
I'd argue it was always a little bit about consumerism. But I mean, I think everything is kind of trending the way of being a product, so yes. I would say, trending towards consumerism.
Yeah, it's like you see so much, like the cars, the flowers, the chocolate, like the pajamas, the bedding, like the films, like where I work at John Lewis, it's like prepare yourself for Valentine's Day, and they're holding all these events. Like you see the consumers inside, but it's kind of like just something fun, like a yearly holiday, and like it's not a sense dying. I feel like people just like so used to it. It's like when you're in a relationship, some people don't consider Valentine's Day as something like so special, because it's like we've got an anniversary, we've got other special days. Valentine's Day is just like special occasion, just like spend it with someone or your friends or anyone.
I think Valentine's Day also is kind of like, compared to other holidays that receive the same amount of like marketing, it is like less important, if that makes sense. Like there's, you know, meaning behind why Christmas is celebrated, and there is historical roots in Halloween, and you know the things where you see like the big Easter as well, displays like in stores and stuff. Valentine's Day is just
there,
just kind of an excuse to sell candy, I guess. But it is sweet. It is nice, you know, if you are in a relationship, to kind of have another day where you know, prioritize that. But when you think about it, it's like, this is all just a little bit made up.
I think I quite like the idea. I think it's quite fun. It's nice to just take a break for a day and treat someone to something nice. But I have definitely noticed that my social media is really filled with it, and every brand that I know has done some sort of Valentine's Day release or special or collection. But I think maybe if attitudes were to change about Valentine's Day, it would be more to kind of do it a bit more sustainably, maybe rather than spending a lot of money on cards and things that we're just going to throw away, like chocolates with boxes and packaging. Maybe we need to make more of a stance of buying more sustainable things that will last a longer time, maybe treating someone to something that they will use rather than a teddy bear.
Or not buying anything too, like, because there's such like a, you know, an emphasis on like having to get the nicest gift or whatever. But I think if we want Valentine's Day to be a celebration of like your relationship or, you know, love in general, it should not need to be anchored in how much money you spent, how thoughtful your gift was. So I would hope that, you know, if we were going to change the cultural meaning of Valentine's Day, it would be more about like, you know, spending time or but I mean, I would love to see some organic chocolate boxes coming out. It is crazy because like they don't need to have plastic inside them. They really could just not.
So another feature that we were looking at in today's episode is the question that is almost impossible to answer. Is it possible to be too famous? This article reveals the phenomenon that Taylor Swift is being so famous it's almost somehow insufferable now. Along with other women, Swift has been criticised for being overkill in the media. Do we think that it's possibly the fault of the media for making these celebrities the most talked about people we know?
Yes, 100. If you looked, because I watched this podcast, this woman called Jordan Teresa on YouTube, and she always does deep dives into like she did one about quiet luxury and like different TV show. Like she does deep dives into them, and she did one about the 2000s, and like during it she talked about the magazine media culture, because she talked about Britney Spears and like all the different celebrities that were popular during the day. And if you saw like the amount of like abuse they got, the way they were followed, like especially Britney Spears, like anytime she went out with her like children, she was getting papped, just leaving like Walmart or something, she'd get chased down the street by 50 people hiding in bushes and stuff. And I feel like because the media always try and get something, like, in a sense, like, we want to pick up something that we're not supposed to find out. So the media's obsession with stalking, like, celebrities 24/7 is feeling our obsession, because we want to know what they're doing. Like, we want to know what the rich are doing. Like, we want to know what their life is like. So with the media's, like, obsession with knowing that we want to know everything about it, I think they've gone over the line to the point where they don't, like, register what is too much anymore. Like, the amount of stuff I see about Taylor Swift, like, I haven't listened to her music since I was like 12, but I always see about a new album, where she is, like, who she's dating next, and it's like, why am I getting, like, force-fed all this information because of past actions and past ways we used to interact with celebrity gossip? And I feel like the media just hasn't, like, moved on with the times. It's like, you don't need to chase down someone in the street to get a photo of them, because I can literally just jump on Twitter and just see someone else post about it, walk in the street. And I feel like they've just lost touch with reality a little bit, I can't lie.
One thing about her fans specifically is, like, she doesn't need paparazzi. They're going to be there. They're going to do it for the paparazzi. Yeah, and I'm a bit of two minds about it, because on the one hand, I like Taylor Swift a lot, but I do think that she likes to be very famous. She likes to be talked about. She does almost saturate, her, media with things about her, because she wants to be acclaimed. She wants people to think she's very prolific, which she is, and she's very talented. All of that is true. But yeah, she likes attention. Yeah. I mean, you don't get to that level of fame without liking attention on some level. Yeah. But on the other hand, I think it's what we were talking about earlier, where, like, these media companies need things to drive clicks, and people love Taylor, so people are going to click on things about Taylor. So, like, it's kind of on both ends. Like, she does feed it, but, it would be less if we stopped letting her feed it a little bit.
Because, like, I saw online about, like the cause of AI, because, like, people on Twitter were posting, like, sexual pictures of Taylor Swift, and, like, because she's dating that, like, NFL player now. And I remember this randomly came up on my Twitter, like, her naked with her bum painted with, like, the flags of the team in, like, a crowd. And I'm like, why is there such an obsession with this one individual person?
I will say with that, I think part of why that got to be so big is because she kind of, and this is kind of unusual for a woman as famous as she is, but she has never really played into sex appeal. Like, that's never been part of her brand. So the idea of, like, degrading her in that way, I think for a specific kind of person is kind of thrilling, which is disgusting. But, I mean, you can't.
I think it's interesting what you said about how she feeds her own media coverage, because I think although she might enjoy the attention, maybe that's her way of coping, because I feel like she's got a lot of negative backlash over years and years and years, that I think actually there is nothing that she can do that would be right. I think if she's famous, then she's too famous. If you're a woman, you can't be famous enough. It kind of reminded me when I was reading the piece almost a bit about like the whole concept of, like, the Barbie film is that you can't actually ever get it right, and especially because a lot of the people mentioned as being almost too famous were women. It's almost, is there a idea that we're resentful of successful women, and is that why the press likes to look at their downfall?
It is so rooted in misogyny, I think, because, like you said, like, if she's too successful, then she's everywhere. She's, we're getting bored, we're tired of her. But if she's not, then she's a has-been, she's a flop. It's, and I think also it's something that Taylor has talked about a lot in the past is, like, feeling like she will become outdated. People will think she's too old, or she's too, she's been there, done that, to really continue supporting her and having her be successful, which, when you say that now is like, that sounds crazy, because she's so successful right now, and she's, she's almost 35, so she's not, like, an ingenue anymore. But yeah, I mean, there have been points where, like, it looked like maybe she was going to fade a little bit, and then she comes back, whatever. But yeah, I think that really, though, it's, I mean, I will say I wrote this piece, and the conclusion I came to was that, like, the only real like consequence that comes out of like being overexposed is people are kind of mean to you on Twitter, like, because to get to the point where you could be considered overexposed, you have to be so successful that you will never not be successful. You know what I mean? Because I think the people I mentioned, besides Taylor, who has experienced it multiple times, it's worth noting, I said Anne Hathaway and Jennifer Lawrence, who have both been in like really big movies this year, even though, you know, their overexposure and cancellation happened, you know, mid 2010s. So like, it's never going to be like a thing where it's like, you know, my career is over because I was too popular. But it is, you know, it does lead to things like, you know, her jet being tracked, people making fake AI inappropriate images of her. Like, those things do happen, and that does suck. And like, it's, you know, I can't fault anybody for being upset about that. But at the same time, it's like, you know, dry your tears with those dollar bills.
Yeah.
You know?
It just baffles me, like, the obsession people have with celebrities and how, like, it's been... Because, like, there's a celebrity called Hailey Berry, and, like, she went through, she's going through this scandal because, like, people thought she was pregnant, and then she came out and said that she wasn't pregnant. Then it turns out that she was pregnant because she actually came out and told everyone she had the baby and posted a photo about it. But instead of getting like, oh, congratulations, everyone's like, why are you telling us? Like, keep your business to yourself. Like, you didn't want to tell us the first time, so why are you telling us now? And I'm like, why are you so obsessed with a woman that's just had a baby? Like, you have to understand, she is, so, like, she expels. Like, I feel like there's the idea once you're, like, rich enough, you have to tell the world your whole life. And it's like, when have we become just decided like, okay, she's a celebrity and it's know every single little thing about her because that's just a divine right? And it's like, who told you that was a right? And like, the only way you feel like it's a right because the media feel like you need to be obsessed with them. That's why you're obsessed with them. It's not like you just wake up one morning and it's like, you know what, I'm going to be obsessed with Justin Bieber today. It's like, it doesn't work like that. Wake
up in the morning and think, I wonder if Halle Bailey had that baby.
Yeah.
Like, that doesn't happen to anyone.
Yeah, and it's like, it's the media that keep on like pushing it on you. So you're like, oh, I have to see what's going on. Like, oh, why is she doing this? And it's like, because I've never been a type of person to comment on a celebrity's Instagram because I'm like, what's the point? Like, what's the point telling someone, I love you? It's like, they're not going to read that, are they? No. But it's like, because the media's like just push that narrative that you have to be obsessed, you have to comment, that you just feel like it's normal, like it's just a normal thing to do, which just baffles me every day.
I'm sure we could probably debate that
I know, we should probably
all
cut
day.
that one.
But the last story that we're going to look at today is about sports. Concerns have been raised about the constant cancellation of university games due to poor playing ground conditions. Frustrated sports societies and their members have shared their disappointment over not being able to play as much this term and how that has affected their teams this year. With staying active proving so beneficial for not only our physical health but also our mental health, how important do we think it is that these teams are able to play and that the societies are able to hold these games and events?
Yeah, I think it's because I'm part of Sports Society. I'm a cheer one, but that's a long story within itself. But it's,
which you can read.
Yeah, you can read that on the newspaper as well. But I feel like it is good because when I joined, I never did cheer before in my life. I kind of just went in there thinking it was funny. Like, let's see how far I get and see if I actually want to commit to this. Then when I did it, I was like, oh my God, because like I didn't sign up for a gym anywhere here. Like, I used to go to the gym back home, but I came here, so it wasn't like my main priority. So I came here and I was like, oh, this can be my gym, like this can be my form of exercise. Because I just didn't want to be the uni student that just eats takeaway and just sits there sluggish every day, watching like the clock tick. And I feel like these like sports games like allows you to have that physical, like just like adrenaline of like being competitive, because we all have a competitive nature within ourselves, and it just allows you to be competitive, be free, like let your anger out, while also being active, staying healthy. And I feel like with the lack of games, there's lack of physical activity you're doing, and a lack of engagement with the sport. Like no one knows about these sports games because like they're always cancelled every other week, so you don't even want to go to them. And there's even like such little games like let's take American football. They have like 6 games like a year, and it's like no one hears about it because they don't talk about it. Compared to basketball, they have like a game every week, and they've only lost 1-3 of their games this whole season. Bear in mind they've played like over 15 games, so that's a bit shocking in itself. But it's like I always hear people saying, yeah, we're gonna go to them. Like, how do you find this out? Like, where you find this information from? Because the Instagram, they post it like every month, like the games that are happening that week, and you just never hear about them. So I feel like the university should just promote the games more and like find alternative ways to have the games played, not just cancel it altogether.
Yeah.
It does. It shocks me because, you know, universities where I come from are so sports focused. Like, it is a really big part of university culture. So to come here and not really ever hear anything about it was a little, I mean, it was a little shocking. I was also a little not, because where would that happen? I don't see a sports field near me, but I don't know. But it's really, really important, I think. You know, we always hear about how adults need to find ways of having recreation, because, you know, once you kind of age out of, you know, being a kid, or, you know, doing high school sports, or whatever you call high school, then you kind of lose these spaces where you can be physical and do things that are just fun, that you're not making money off of it. You don't have to go. It's just for you to get energy out, have fun. Adults don't have many spaces like that, and to lose university sports, it's crawling closer and closer to, you know, it's getting to the point where you get to be 17, 18 years old, and then you never get to do something like that again, because there's just not resources allocated to that. Like you're saying, it's crazy that there's not a big social media presence either, because that's how everybody finds out about everything these days. Nobody reads posters on the wall anymore.
Yeah, I just think it's also important to mention that university can be quite a lonely place for students if you're not exercising, things like that, and it's very stressful on your mental health. It's nice to just have something that students can rely on to go to see other people, meet other people, and also be active and run off a little bit of steam. So I think that it's important that we look into this more, and that things are, well, that there's more enthusiasm behind university sports, I think.
Do you think that, I'm assuming it's a team that you're a part of, right? Has that been good for you on a social level? Are you grateful for that?
Yeah, because I used to discuss it with my flatmates Ede and Lena. It was going to cheer. It's an escape kind of everyday life, because I've made friends within cheer, because I feel if I didn't, the only people I would have met was people in my accommodation and people in my course, and that would be it. So cheer allowed me to expect it was a stepping stone to talk to other people in a space that you're all doing the same thing. No one's getting judged, because half the people do even did cheer previously, and it was just nice to have that a bond with other people outside, you have nothing connecting you except for cheer, so you can bond over different stuff. It's not a forced connection you have to find on the first day of university, because you just don't want to be left alone for the next 3 years. And that's why I feel most sports teams are, because a lot of people just join it for the nights out. I always hear stories about people that join rugby just for the night out and actually don't play rugby at all. And there's that aspect as well. It's you get to socialise with people on nights out as well. It's not you're just stuck inside doing nothing. And I feel it's just it's just fun. It's just something fun to do. And I think people don't acknowledge that with sports around here that much.
I think it probably is most relevant when talking about sports, but really extracurriculars in general are kind of, at this university especially, I feel it's very under valued. I know there's a lot of societies, but I don't ever hear much about any of them, and I don't know that many of them have lots of ability to do things or to have events or things, because, you know, little resources, little funding, little people joining because they don't know that it exists. There's a couple societies that I hear a lot about, the same 3 or 4, but people have a lot of interests, so it feels like there should be more.
Yeah, might have to do a bit more writing on our
yeah
societies that we've got here. So that's everything that we're going to cover today. Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed it, and don't forget to go and pick up our newspaper. And then we'll see you for the next issue.